It is past midnight in a garden just outside Jerusalem. Torches, armor, the sound of men moving through low brush, Roman soldiers, temple guards, armed, organized. They have a warrant. A man steps forward from the shadows to meet them. No weapon, no bodyguard, calm in a way that makes no sense. Who are you looking for? He, Jesus of Nazareth. He speaks two words, and every soldier in that garden drops backward to the ground. All of them, flat on their backs in the dirt, like a wave knocked them off their feet. 2 words did that. We are going to find out exactly what those words were. But to understand what happened in that garden, you need to go back 1,500 years to a different fire and a different terrified man. It is past midnight in a garden just outside the walls of Jerusalem. Torches, the smell of olive trees, the sound of men moving through low brush, armor catching the light. There are soldiers here, Roman soldiers, temple guards, men who have done this before. They are armed. They are organized. They have a warrant, and they have a guide. They know exactly who they are looking for. A man steps forward from the shadows to meet them. No weapon, no bodyguard. Just a man in the dark, calm in a way that doesn't make sense given what is about to happen to him. Who are you looking for? He asks. Jesus of Nazareth, they say, and then he speaks 2 words. 2 words. And every soldier in that garden, every guard, every armed man drops backward to the ground. Not one, not a few, all of them, flat on their backs in the dirt, like a wave knocked them off their feet. 2 words did that. We are going to come back to this garden. We are going to find out exactly what those 2 words were and why they had that effect. But to understand what happened in that garden at midnight, you need to go back 1,500 years to a different place, a different fire, and a different terrified man. His name is Moses. He is 80 years old, barefoot on a mountainside in the Sinai desert, watching a bush burn without being consumed. He has been running for 40 years. Running from a murder he committed, from a palace he walked away from an identity he buried so deep he thought even God couldn't find it. But God found it. From the middle of the fire, a voice speaks, and Moses asks the most reasonable question a terrified man can ask, who are you? And the answer comes back in Hebrew, 3 words that never stopped reverberating through human history.
I, Asher, I.
I am who I am, not I was, not I will be. I am, permanent, present, uncontained by time. This is not a theology lecture. This is not a word study. This is not a list of Bible verses. This is the story of a name and what it does to every single person it touches. The name is Yahweh, and before this video is over, you are going to hear it spoken in a way that drops armed men to the ground. Stay with me. If what you just heard is already hitting you, go ahead and hit I key before you forget. That tells the algorithm to bring this video to someone who needs to hear this name today. It costs you nothing. It might mean everything to someone else. Here is something that most Bible readers miss entirely. When the Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek, a translation called the Septuagint, made about 250 years before Jesus was born, the translators had to choose words for Ai Asher Aya, for I am who I am. They chose ego Eimi. 2 Greek words, ego, I, Eimi, am. Simple. Except in Greek, the pronoun ego is actually unnecessary. The verb form, Eimi, already tells you the subject is I. If you say Eimi, everyone knows you mean I am. You only add ego when you want to be emphatic, when you want there to be absolutely no confusion about who is speaking. Ego Eimi. I and I alone, am. Now, keep that phrase in the back of your mind, because in the Gospel of John, and only in the Gospel of John, Jesus uses that exact phrase, ego Eimi, 7 times, in 7 different moments, to 7 different people. And every single time, he says it to someone who is in the middle of something desperate. The first time is beside a lake. You have to picture the scene. Jesus has just fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. An afternoon that nobody in that crowd will ever forget for as long as they live. And the next morning, the crowd tracks him down on the other side of the lake. They want more bread. Of course they do. Wouldn't you? Jesus looks at them. Hungry people, hopeful people, people who followed a miracle across water, and he says something that must have felt like cold water on their enthusiasm. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Eimi. I am. He is not offering them a second lunch. He is offering them something the bread could never give them. A hunger satisfied at the level that doesn't come back. Most of them walk away. John tells us that plainly. The crowd that numbered 5,000 that afternoon, most of them leave. That is the first, I am, and it costs him the crowd. The second one happens in the temple. It is the Feast of Tabernacles, one of the great pilgrim festivals of Jerusalem. For 7 nights, the temple courts are lit by 4 massive golden lampstands, each one 9 stories tall, visible from miles outside the city. The priests carry torch-lit bowls of oil. The whole city glows. It is the most brilliantly lit night of the Jewish calendar. And Jesus stands in the middle of that light in the treasury, John says, right next to the lampstands. And he says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Eimi. You can imagine what the priests thought. You can imagine the scholars standing there, torchlight on their faces, realizing he is not talking about the lampstands behind him. He is saying he is what the lampstands point to. He is the thing the whole festival is about. They do not arrest him that day. John says simply that his time had not yet come. But they are watching. The third and fourth come together, and they are easier to miss if you are reading too fast. I am the gate. He says in John chapter 10, whoever enters through me will be saved. Picture a sheepfold, a low stone enclosure, open at one end, where shepherds in first-century Judea would bring their flocks at night. There is no gate exactly. The shepherd himself lies across the opening. His body is the door. Nothing gets in or out without going through him. He is not a rule you follow. He is not a system you navigate. He is the opening itself. The only way the sheep are safe is through him. And then, almost in the same breath, he says it again. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Here's what most people about that sentence. In the ancient world, a hired hand who watched your sheep was paid by the season. When a wolf came, the math was simple. His life was worth more than your sheep, so he ran. Every shepherd your listeners had ever hired had done that calculus and come up short. Jesus is saying, I am the shepherd who doesn't run that calculation. I am the one who looks at the wolf and stays anyway.
Forest, bread, light,
Gate, shepherd. And pay attention to this. Every single one of them is spoken to a need. The hungry crowd gets bread. The nation celebrating light gets the source of light. The people who feel locked out, unsafe, belonging nowhere, they get a gate and a shepherd who will not leave. He does not announce himself to the powerful in the palace. He announces himself to the people who are starving and lost and afraid of the dark. Eimi. I am for you. Right here, right now. In the comments below, tell me which of these 4 hits closest to where you are right now. Are you hungry for something bread can't fix? Are you walking through a darkness you can't find your way out of? Are you outside a door that feels permanently shut? Tell me. I read every single one. Stop for just a moment, because there is a pattern here, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Jesus does not say Eimi in a synagogue during a formal sermon to a room full of people who have it together. He says it beside a lake to people who are hungry. He says it in a temple court to people stumbling around in spiritual darkness. He says it outside a sheep pen to people who have never felt safe a day in their lives. Every single I am is spoken to a specific wound. He does not name himself in the abstract. He names himself to you, to the exact shape of what you are missing, what you are afraid of, what you cannot find on your own. That pattern is not an accident, and it is about to get even more remarkable. The fifth statement is the one that breaks you open if you let it. It is not spoken in a temple. It is not spoken to a crowd. It is spoken on a dusty road outside a village called Bethany to a woman who has just buried her brother. Her name is Martha, and she has been waiting 4 days. 4 days since Lazarus got sick. 4 days since she sent word to Jesus, the man who had healed strangers, who had given sight to people born blind, who had done things she had watched with her own eyes and still could not fully explain. She sent word. She waited. He did not come, and Lazarus died. By the time Jesus finally arrives, Martha walks out to meet him on the road, not weeping quietly, not holding herself together. Martha, practical, straight-talking Martha, walks straight at him and says the truest thing grief ever produces. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. 6 words, every syllable of them an accusation wrapped in a confession. And Jesus does not go to the tomb first. He does not perform a miracle first. He does not explain himself or apologize or offer a theological reason for the delay. He looks at her, this woman covered in 4 days of grief, standing in the road with her loss in her eyes. And he says, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. Ego Eimi. Not, I will perform a resurrection. Not, resurrection is coming someday. I am the resurrection. Present tense, standing in front of you on this road, right now, in the middle of your 4-day grief. You need to sit with that for a moment. He does not wait for the miracle to make the claim. He makes the claim first, to a grieving woman in the dirt, before anything has changed. Because he is not offering Martha a magic trick. He is offering her himself. The stakes have escalated now, haven't they? Bread feeds the hungry. Light guides the lost. The gate keeps you safe. The shepherd stays when the wolf comes. But resurrection means death itself is not the end of the conversation. Here's the part nobody tells you. The Mishnah, the ancient Jewish legal text compiled around 200 AD, recording traditions far older, describes what happened on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement in the temple. Once a year, once only, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies and speak the divine name aloud. Yahweh. The congregation outside could not hear it directly, but when they knew the moment had come, every person in the temple courts would fall prostrate on the ground. The name did that. The name had always done that. Keep that in mind. The 6th statement comes hours before his arrest. The 12 disciples are in an upper room in Jerusalem. The Passover meal is finished. The mood is heavy in a way none of them can quite name. The way a room feels when something enormous is about to happen and everyone senses it, but no one will say it aloud. Jesus tells them he is going somewhere they cannot follow. Not yet. And Thomas, honest, literal, often misunderstood Thomas, says what the others are thinking but are too afraid to ask, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? It is one of the most human questions in the entire New Testament. We don't know where. We don't know how. We're lost and we're scared and we need directions. And Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Ego Eimi. This is the most exclusive claim he makes. Not bread for the hungry, not light for the lost. This is the only door to God that exists. Anywhere. Ever. The scholars in his day understood it immediately. The scholars in our day still argue about it. But the words are not ambiguous. He does not say a way. He does not say one of several ways. He says the way. The definite article. Singular. Final. And he says it to Thomas. Frightened, uncertain. Where are we going, Thomas? Not to the confident. Not to the ones who had it figured out. To the one asking the most desperate question in the room. And then the seventh, the final I am. And this one is different from all the others because it is not a declaration. It is an invitation. I am the vine, he says. You are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Not bread given to you, not a gate you pass through, not even a shepherd standing between you and danger. A vine, and you are the branch. The branch does not visit the vines. The branch does not check in with the vine occasionally. The branch lives inside the vine, and the vine lives inside the branch, and you cannot cut them apart without killing both. This is the most intimate thing he has said across all 7 statements, and he says it on the same night as the upper room, hours before Gethsemane, knowing what the morning holds. Share this with someone who needs to know they are not cut off from the vine, that no matter how dry the season feels, the root is still alive. Send it to them today. Now we go back to the garden. It is the same night as the upper room. The same night he called himself the vine. The same night Thomas asked where they were going. After the meal, after the prayer, after everything, Jesus leads the 11 remaining disciples across the Kidron Valley and into an olive grove called Gethsemane. He knows what is coming. He has known for years, and he goes anyway. The soldiers arrive with torches and weapons. Judas is with them. The 12th disciple, the one who had sat at that same table an hour earlier, who had dipped bread in the same bowl. He leads them straight to the garden, straight to the man. And Jesus, instead of hiding, instead of running, instead of waiting to be identified, steps forward. Who are you looking for? He asks. Jesus of Nazareth, they say, and he says it. 2 words. The same 2 words that Moses heard from a burning bush. The same 2 words the Septuagint used to translate the name that scribes washed their hands before they wrote. The same 2 words Jesus had spoken 7 times across 3 years of ministry. To the hungry, to the lost, to the grieving, to the afraid. Ego, Eimi, I am. And every single soldier in that garden goes down. Backward. To the ground, all of them. John records it without explanation, almost casually, as if it is simply what happens when a man speaks a name like that. They drew back and fell to the ground. But you and I need to sit with that for a moment, because what John is describing is not a miracle in the conventional sense. Jesus does not strike anyone. He does not call fire from heaven. He does not send angels. He speaks 2 words, 2 ordinary Greek words that every person in that garden has heard 1,000 times. And something in the weight of what those words carry knocks armed men off their feet. Here's what most people miss. The Mishnah describes the congregation in the temple courts falling prostrate when the high priest spoke the divine name on Yom Kippur. 1 day per year. Inside the temple, the name did that. In Gethsemane, outside the walls, at midnight, with no ceremony and no ritual, the same thing happens, because the name has not changed. The name has never lost a single syllable of its power. It is not a tradition or a ceremony or a religious feeling. It is a reality. And when the reality speaks, even the bodies of men who do not believe in it respond. Ego, Eimi. And they fall. He did not fall. He did not hide. He did not negotiate. He said the name, and then he let them take him, because the vine does not abandon the branches. The good shepherd does not run when the wolf arrives. The gate does not close against the sheep it promised to protect. Every I am he ever spoke was, in some way, a preparation for this moment, this garden, this night, this arrest, the bread of life going willingly to be broken, the light of the world walking into darkness, the good shepherd lying down at the entrance, becoming the door, so that the wolf passes through him and not through us. And this is where it gets remarkable. April 9th, 1945, a prison camp in Bavaria called Flossenbürg, 9 days before Allied forces would liberate it. A German pastor named Dietrich Bonhoeffer is taken from his cell in the early morning hours. He is 39 years old. He had been arrested 2 years earlier for his involvement in a plot against Hitler, a man who had chosen resistance when it was easier and safer to be silent. A British officer named Payne Best, who shared the camp with Bonhoeffer and survived, wrote about his final morning. Bonhoeffer had led a short worship service for the other prisoners. He prayed. He read scripture. Best wrote, and this is the word he chose: calm. Calm in a way that did not match the circumstances. Calm in a way that Best, who was not a religious man, could not entirely explain. He wrote, "He was one of the very few men I have ever met to whom God was real and ever close." Bonhoeffer walked to the gallows that morning and died 9 days before liberation. But here is what you need to understand about that morning. Bonhoeffer was not calm because he was brave. He was calm because he knew the vine. He had spent his entire life learning to remain in it, writing theology in seminary classrooms, preaching in underground churches, scratching letters to his fiancée from a prison cell. Through all of it, the same 2 words had held him: I am, the resurrection and the life, the way, the vine. The name that dropped soldiers in a garden held a pastor in a prison, and it has not changed. So here is what we have found. 7 statements, 7 moments, 7 different people and 7 different kinds of desperate. And every single time, Jesus uses the same 2 words the God of the burning bush used when Moses asked who he was. Ego Eimi, I am. The Greek translation of the Hebrew name that was too sacred to say aloud, too large for any single language to hold, too real for armed men in a garden to stay on their feet when they heard it. Here is the first thing to take from this. Every I am statement in the Gospel of John is a deliberate echo of Exodus 3:14. The same phrase, the same Greek words used in the ancient Septuagint translation. This was not poetic coincidence. It was a claim. The clearest, most public, most repeated claim Jesus ever made about who he was. And the people who heard it knew exactly what he meant. That is why they picked up stones. That is why soldiers fell. Here is the second thing. Jesus chose the moment of each I am with extraordinary care. He did not say these things in a throne room or a palace or a hall of power. He said them beside a lake to hungry people, on a road to a grieving woman, in an upper room to frightened men. He names himself to your specific need, not to humanity in general, to you, to the exact shape of what you are carrying right now. And here is the third thing, the one I want you to carry out of this video. Trained soldiers, armed men, men who had done this before and were not afraid of much. They fell to the ground at 2 words, not a thunderclap, not a pillar of fire, just a name, spoken quietly by a man in a garden who had nowhere left to run and chose not to run anyway. If that name can do that to armed soldiers in the dark, it can hold you, whatever you are walking through right now. Whatever feels too heavy, too dark, too final, the name has not lost a syllable. I am, still, right now, for you. Which I am in this video hit you where you live? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one and sub as sub. New Bible explainer every single week. I'll see you next Sunday. The bush still burns. The name hasn't changed. I am.